Very well, Colin. Good to see you, mate.
Very good, very good, very good. We're both wearing our same favorite T-shirts. We've got 10 of these, like that guy
Yeah.
from Apple, Steve Jobs, whatever. Very good. So look, we had a session on self-returns. So the premise was that, retailers, spend an enormous amount of money, the cost of a return, if you like, the average cost was around 10 euros, according to a small little benchmark survey we did. So if you can take it back to the store, that price comes down because the cost includes the cost of a phone call, the mistakes, the transportation, the checking, and all the rest of it. So the idea of self returns is you cut out some of that labor hours, you cut out some of the telephone calls, etc. If you're doing it on an app. We had a couple of retailers present where they got to. One of them sort of said, we did a whole lot of work and it got quite risky. Another one sort of, but then other priorities took over. And then we had another retailer talk about how they rolled it out and, doing millions and millions of returns through self-returns. And then the other retailers jumped in and shared their thoughts. So it was a really productive call. We had, I think, about 40 odd retailers on the call and very engaging discussion. And I think some really clear takeaways as well. But what did you sort of put down as your sort of takeaways, or what the learnings could be for other retailers who might be joining this recording?
Yes, as retailers have increasingly moved into omni-channel, so operating not only through bricks and mortars, but obviously online as well, and most retailers now a blend of these two. Refunds, has really become quite an important issue for them to manage. And we've seen as more and more people order things online, then the number of refunds, particularly when you're dealing with apparel, has really ballooned, and so it's become an issue of concern for retailers, because if you don't manage it well, you can end up losing money on this, because if people are using home as their fitting room, they're ordering 5 items, but they only ever intended to buy one. That's a lot of product for you to process back through your supply chain and deal with and so on. So it's really interesting to hear how, that one way to try and manage this was to, encourage the customer to return the product back to the store. And there were 2 reasons why they thought this was important. Well, certainly one of them did. One was it reduces the cost. You don't have the postage and all that sort of element. And 2, you're bringing the customer back into the store. So there's a potential upsell moment where you can say, well, while I'm here bringing this back, I'll have a little wander around. And so that was seen as, a really important benefit for some in terms of bringing customers back into that. And we've seen some who've shown that there is a genuine uplift in sales by people returning product to stores. So, I could see why it was interesting to do it. I think the challenge we have with this, of course, is, and we've seen this many times, which is there's always this balance, isn't there, about how convenient and easy do you make it for a customer to do something, and what is then the impact on your ability to control the risk associated with that. And what we've got here, I think, is a really classic case study of this, isn't it? Which is, the company's making it as easy as they possibly can for a customer to get their money back by bringing the product back and giving it back to the retailer. But on the other hand, all the various ways in which that opens you up to risk. So have they really returned it? Is it in good shape? Is it the original product that they claimed it was? And all these other, these frauds that we are very familiar with. How do you then build that level of control into something where you're trying to make it as convenient as you possibly can? And I think that's what we heard from these case studies was, on the one hand, it's really easy. You can come to the store, you scan your product, you put it in a bin, and before you know it, you've got your money back. But then we saw some videos, didn't we, of people scanning product but not putting it in the bin, walking away with it. And this is the balance you have, which is what are the types of controls do you need to have in place to minimize your risk, but at the same time not make it too frictionful that it's not worth it, that you're having to employ more staff.
Friction. New word.
Oh, I've just made it up. So that's the trade-off, isn't it? Which is, you can reduce your labour costs at the refund desk by getting the customer to do it for you. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like self-checkout. But at the same time, by not having a member of staff overseeing this important process, what is the risk then of people exploiting it? And we heard some examples of the value that was being lost through this. But also, we heard about how they were beginning to introduce methods to try and minimize their risk. So it was a really interesting session in thinking through these often competing dynamics within retail organizations of, convenience, customer service versus controlling risk and loss.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's that risk appetite that you've always talked about. What is your risk appetite, and it's also a sort of sense of, well, do you what sort of capabilities you invest in behind, because for some retailers they just don't have the resources to invest in loss prevention capability that can sort of detect and mitigate and control and pick out the outliers that people are abusing. So you do have to invest in systems and all the rest of it to support the frictionless journey. So yeah, it was a really classic case of that. I got the sense that from the call that there's going to be more of it going forward. I got the sense both in online grocery and even in apparel. I got the sense that the self returns is going to be something we look at again next year and see that more retailers are doing it and have that risk appetite and happy to make that trade-off.
Yeah, and it's it comes back to, of course, that it's very important to measure the loss, doesn't it? Which is, if you know exactly what's being lost through that process, then you can make some clear business choices. Which is, it could be, you could say we lose X, but every time a customer comes in, we get Y, and we can balance off those losses versus, customer satisfaction scores, and we know how important they are. As in terms of a sort of more holistic, sense of it from the business, you can say we're prepared to suck up what could be, for instance, 0.02 of loss for the amount of benefit it brings to our customers. And that's the trade-off we always have, which is, how much loss are you prepared to accept to enable you to deliver the business choices that you want?
Yeah, same with self-checkout, right? Productivity versus loss.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, and then you just look out for the outliers. But that's fascinating. Very, very good. Well, thank you, Adrian, for those thoughts and for a new word for our dictionary, frictionful.
Friction.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.
All right, cheers, Colin. Bye-bye.
Cheers, then. Bye.